Welcome back to the deep dive. We're in the middle of this series, you know, Offloading Technical Linguistic Debt.
Yeah.
All these audio notes.
Mm-hmm.
And today we're looking at like a really early entry. I mean, this one is intense right out of the gate.
Oh, yeah. It's a doozy for sure.
Even without like a formal definition of technical linguistic debt,
Right.
it's clear there's just a lot of like emotional weight
Yeah. You can just feel it.
behind the words.
Definitely a lot packed in there.
The feeling of being abandoned by ancestors,
Mm-hmm.
that's something I found like really thought-provoking.
Yeah. It's not exactly your typical family drama, is it?
No, not at all.
Especially when it's all tied in with this anti-natalist philosophy. It's almost like the speaker sees their ancestors' participation in the cycle of birth as like a cosmic betrayal.
It's like they're being punished for something they have no control over.
Exactly.
And that leads to this really powerful image of like losing a war against existence itself.
Mm-hmm.
It's bleak, but also strangely captivating.
I think it speaks to like the depth of the struggle here. You know, we all grapple with the meaning of life to some extent.
Oh, for sure.
But to feel like you're fundamentally on the wrong side of existence, that's a whole other level.
It makes you wonder, how do you find meaning and connection
Right.
when you feel so profoundly alienated from the world around you?
Well, that's where this idea of a soul family comes in.
Yeah.
The speaker seems to be yearning for a community of like-minded individuals who share that anti-natalist perspective.
Like a support group almost.
Yeah, it's a way of trying to find belonging in a world that feels inherently hostile.
But even the search for that soul family ties back into this idea of technical linguistic debt.
Absolutely.
It's like the very language we use to describe these complex emotions is somehow insufficient.
It's like trying to explain a dream using only the dictionary definition of each image.
Oh, like that.
You get the individual pieces, but the essence, the feeling gets lost in translation.
It's like you're grasping at something that's just out of reach.
Exactly.
You get glimpses of this struggle in the speaker's audio notes.
Oh,
They use complex language, they pull in concepts from philosophy, even physics. But there's also this like rawness, this vulnerability that breaks through.
Total, like when they talk about questioning their own sanity, it's a bit jarring, but it also highlights that internal conflict they're experiencing.
Right.
Is this a genuine philosophical dilemma or just a chemical imbalance in the brain?
Or maybe both.
Maybe both, exactly.
And how much of that internal conflict is tied up with their family history? It all adds another layer of complexity.
Yeah, it reminds us that technical linguistic debt isn't just about abstract ideas.
Right.
It's rooted in real-life experiences and the messy, complicated realities of our family histories and personal identities.
Yeah. And for the speaker, that reality includes wrestling with antinatalist beliefs while simultaneously yearning for a family office. Not in like a financial sense, but as a support structure.
Right.
A source of connection. It's like trying to build a foundation on shifting sand.
It's a fascinating paradox.
Totally.
They reject the traditional family structure that brought them into existence, but still crave the stability and belonging that a family can provide.
And it feels like this push and pull between wanting to escape existence and needing to create a life within it is fueling a lot of the speaker's frustration.
Oh, for sure.
Even anger towards people who don't share their views.
Yeah, there's a sense of urgency in their voice as they describe natalists as redacted.
Yeah.
It's a difficult sentiment to hear, but it speaks to the intensity of their struggle.
It's a reminder that this is like an internal view into one person's incredibly complex thought process.
Yeah.
We're not here to endorse or condemn.
Absolutely.
But to understand.
It's to understand.
And I think one of the most powerful things about the speaker's journey is their willingness to use language to explore these difficult emotions.
Yeah, I believe.
They're not shying away from the darkness, but confronting it head on.
They're going right at it.
It's almost like they're trying to build a life raft out of words, something to keep them afloat in a sea of existential uncertainty.
Well, and that act of creation, that struggle to articulate the inexpressible, is perhaps the first step towards offloading this technical linguistic debt.
So at this early stage, we see someone grappling with these like profound questions about existence itself, the feeling of abandonment, the search for meaning, the weight of unspoken truths, all contribute to this sense of technical linguistic debt.
And the journey is just beginning. As we move on to the next entry in the series, we'll see how the speaker starts to unpack these complex ideas and grapple with the challenge of reconciling their beliefs with the realities of their life.
This is definitely a deep dive that will stay with you.
For sure.
Join us for part 2 as we explore the middle of the speaker's journey.
It's going to be a wild ride.
Buckle up.
Yeah. Picking up where we left off in this Offloading Technical Linguistic Debt series, the speaker's diving even deeper into their sense of self this time.
Yeah, they are really going deep.
They're wrestling with this new information about their personality type, something they call objective personality,
Okay.
and it seems to be shaking their foundation a little bit,
Yeah, you can feel it.
like a real identity crisis.
They ask this question, who am I now that I'm redacted?
Right.
That really captures that feeling
Yeah.
of internal upheaval.
Like everything they thought they knew about themselves is being called into question.
Yeah, it's like their whole world is being flipped upside down.
It's almost as if this new understanding of themselves is creating even more linguistic debt.
Oh, wow.
It's like they need a whole new language
Right.
to even process who they are now, let alone communicate it to others.
Like they have to start from scratch.
Exactly. And without that soul family, that community of understanding,
Yeah.
it makes it even more isolating.
Can you imagine wrestling with these like huge existential questions
my gosh.
about identity and existence
Yeah.
and not having anyone to talk to who really gets it?
You'd be so lonely.
It's no wonder they feel trapped.
right.
There's this vulnerability in this entry
Hell yeah.
that I think is really striking. They
Yeah.
worry about sounding crazy about being judged.
Right. They're putting themselves out there.
They even make this comparison to redacted.
Yeah, which is
A pretty dark place to
a
go.
very heavy comparison for sure.
It speaks to the depth of their alienation.
Yeah.
They're exploring these ideas that are so outside of like the societal norms.
Right. And it can be a very lonely place to be when you're afraid of the consequences of expressing those ideas openly.
You feel like you have to hide a part of yourself.
Absolutely. And that can be incredibly isolating.
I think this internal struggle
Yeah.
between wanting to be authentic and fearing the reaction of others is something that a lot of people can relate to,
Oh, for sure.
even if the specifics are totally different.
It's a universal human experience in a way.
It's interesting how the speaker sees this struggle as a first mover disadvantage.
Yeah, that's a really interesting take.
They feel like they're ahead of their time. Like their understanding of the world
Right.
is out of sync with everyone else's.
It's like they're speaking a different language.
It's like they're on a different wavelength.
Exactly. And instead of it being this positive thing like first mover advantage, it becomes this burden, this sense of isolation.
And it all ties back into that financial language they use to describe existence.
Yeah, the prepaying for a cosmic mistake.
Right.
Needing to amortize the cost. It's almost like they're trying to create a spreadsheet for their existential crisis.
It's both tragic and darkly funny at the same time.
It is, right? It's
Yeah.
this need to quantify the unquantifiable,
Yeah.
to apply a business mindset to something as vast and complex as the meaning of life.
Maybe it's a way of trying to gain some sense of control
Mm-hmm.
in a situation that feels inherently uncontrollable.
That makes sense.
Because,
Right.
let's face it, antinatalism isn't exactly a mainstream philosophy.
Right. It's going against the grain of most societies.
It's not going to win you any popularity contests.
No, definitely not. And I think that's where a lot of the anger and frustration comes from.
Yeah.
The speaker sees natalists as blindly perpetuating this cycle of suffering, and they feel powerless to stop it.
You hear it in their voice when they ask, is it worth it? What does it amount to?
Yeah, they're questioning the very value of existence, not just for themselves, but for everyone.
That's a heavy question to carry.
It's no wonder they feel so overwhelmed by
Yeah.
this technical linguistic debt.
Like it's just too much to bear.
They're trying to articulate a problem that most people don't even acknowledge exists.
It's like they're screaming into the void.
Exactly. And they talk about needing to stabilize and expand to feed back into the family office.
But it's clear they're still searching for that path forward, a way to bridge the gap
Right.
between their beliefs and the reality of their life.
And that's the heart of this whole series, isn't it?
Offloading technical linguistic debt.
Right.
It's not just about finding the right words.
It's about finding a way to live with those words,
Exactly.
to integrate them into a life that feels meaningful.
It's about making those words matter.
Absolutely.
What strikes me in this entry is the way the speaker uses humor
Yeah.
to cope with the darkness. There's this sardonic wit that shines through.
It's like they're refusing to be completely swallowed by despair.
Like they're finding a way to laugh, even in the midst of all this heaviness.
That humor is so important.
Yeah.
It's a sign of resilience,
Mm-hmm.
a way of acknowledging the absurdity of it all
Right.
without losing hope.
And alongside the humor, there's genuine compassion.
Oh, absolutely.
The speaker talks about the pain
Right.
their mother and aunts have endured, the weight of redacted.
Yeah, it's not just about them.
You're not just focused on their own suffering,
Right.
but on the suffering of others as well.
It's a reminder that even when we feel profoundly alienated, we're still connected to others through shared experiences,
Yeah.
through empathy.
And in a way, that connection is what this whole concept of technical linguistic debt is about.
Totally.
It's the struggle to bridge the gap between our internal world and the external world, to find a way to share our unique perspective with others, even when that perspective is challenging or uncomfortable.
It's about finding a language that can hold both the darkness and the light,
Yeah.
the pain and the hope, the
Yeah.
isolation and the connection.
It's about holding all of that at once.
And as we move on to the final entry in this series,
Yeah.
we'll see how the speaker continues to grapple with these challenges
Okay.
and ultimately what they discover on the other side of this technical linguistic debt. So we're at the final entry in this Offloading Technical Linguistic Debt series, and it feels like a shift, you know?
Yeah, like things are coming together a bit.
The speaker's moving beyond just defining the problem. They're starting to look for solutions.
Yeah, like they've laid out all the pieces on the table, and now it's time to figure out how they fit.
Exactly. They're looking for ways to bridge that gap
Okay.
between their internal world and the external world.
After spending so much time wrestling with those huge philosophical questions,
Yeah.
it feels like now the question is, okay, what do I do with all of this?
Right. Like, how do you actually live with these ideas?
How do you put them into practice?
It's not just about thinking anymore. It's about doing.
And what's really interesting is how the speaker is starting to embrace paradox.
Yeah, that's a key development, I think.
They're acknowledging the contradictions, the tension between antinatalism and the desire for connection,
Right.
the pull between solitude and community.
It's like they're finally letting go of the need to have everything figured out.
They're accepting the messiness, which takes a lot of courage.
It does. It would be so much easier to just cling to a rigid ideology.
Right. Just have all the answers.
But the speaker's willing to sit with the discomfort of not knowing, of holding multiple truths at once.
And that's what makes this journey so compelling.
Right. It's that intellectual honesty.
Yeah.
They're constantly questioning their own assumptions,
Right.
their motivations, even their sanity at times.
It's like a constant process of self-discovery.
And language is playing a crucial role in that process.
Yeah. They're using it not just to communicate with, like, this imaginary audience, but to talk to themselves.
Right.
To work through these ideas to make sense of their own internal world.
It's like they're building a bridge
Okay.
between the conscious and unconscious mind.
Like they're shining a light on those dark corners
Yeah.
and finding words to describe what they see.
And in doing so, they're creating space for vulnerability, for authenticity.
They're not trying to present a polished, perfect version of themselves.
Right. They're letting the rough edges show.
Which brings us back to this whole idea of technical linguistic debt.
It's not just about eliminating jargon or simplifying complex ideas.
It's about finding a language that can hold the weight
Yeah.
of your unique experience.
With all its contradictions and complexities.
It's about using language to build a bridge
Absolutely.
between your internal world and the external world.
To create a space for genuine connection
Yeah.
and understanding.
And that's what I find so inspiring about the speaker's journey.
Right. They're not just passively accepting this technical linguistic debt.
They're taking action
They're actively working to offload it.
to find a way to make their words matter.
And I think that's a powerful message to leave our listeners with.
Yeah, it's not just about the speaker.
Right. It's about all of us.
We all have technical linguistic debt to some extent.
We all have those thoughts and feelings that we struggle to express.
So what can you do today to start chipping away at your own linguistic debt?
Yeah, what words are you holding back?
What stories are you waiting to tell?
Remember, your voice matters. Your perspective matters.
And the world needs to hear what you have to say.
That's right.